Welcome to the weekend wrap-up with Trevor Junt. I'm Trevor Junt, and this is Gunnar Miller. His @ is Let Gunna Cook. So, in this show, we talk about all the NFL games that happened this weekend with the 2-minute timer. With that being said, let's get started. So let's jump into Gunner's first game. Gunner, what is your first game?
My first game is the Patriots versus Texans. This one was more interesting than I thought it would have been, as the Patriots come out with this one 25-22. Patriots went on a big comeback victory, being down 22-9 in the third quarter. This one, what reached out to me in this game was Mac Jones played well enough, going 23 for 30, 231 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. But definitely disappointing knowing how he played against Tampa Bay the week before. Another thing was, in my opinion, the MVP of this game was Nick Folk, as he accounted for more than half of the Patriots' points, which was 13, and 2 field goals from 52 yards out.
Yeah, Houston really choked this game away.
Oh, definitely.
Davis Mills went off. He'll talk about his grandkids about this game, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, in my opinion, this is his one and only good game that he'll ever have really in his career. He went 21 for 29, 312 yards and 3 touchdowns with a passer rating of 141.7. So once he's out of the league in 3 years, he'll be talking to his kids and grandkids about this game.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, they should have sealed the game, but they just didn't. They just let New England creep back in. Houston had a blocked punt, and then New England scored on 3 straight possessions of the game. 16 straight points to come back and win. So, okay, let's say we're looking at Mac Jones, we're looking at the Patriots. In 2 to 3 years, what do you see the Patriots doing, and what about the future of their franchise?
I honestly think the Patriots are going to be set in a couple years. I mean, they got a really good defense from free agency this year, and Mac Jones is only going to continue to get better, and he has shown a lot of signs of being great. Like, he could be, I said this on another show, I said Mac Jones could be the next big thing. We don't know, and we'll just have to see for ourselves, but it will definitely be interesting to see how Mac Jones leads this team and how the Patriots will do under these circumstances.
So let's say Super Bowl contenders. Is that a possibility in your mind?
Well, with the defense and offense, I definitely think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's jump into your next game.
Well, my next game would be the Titans versus the Jags. Titans win big in Jacksonville with a big offensive production day, 37-19. The production basically coming from Derrick Henry with 29 carries for 130 yards. And a hat trick. He continues to show us why he's truly the best running back in the league.
Yeah, he leads the league with 640 yards in 5 games.
Yeah.
That's wild. And then they literally just give the ball to Henry and let him work. One thing is, no other running back in the league has over 94 carries. Derrick Henry has 142 carries.
Wow.
And then Julio was out, banged up A.J. Brown. Pretty much there was no receiving in this game for the Titans.
Yeah.
52 yards was the most by Marcus Johnson. And then Trevor Lawrence, man, I just kind of feel bad for them in this situation. I dislike Urban Meyer. I don't think he's a good head coach.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I was wondering, the Jags just continue to struggle, and I wonder if this game had an effect with the recent incident with Urban Meyer at the bar. That was just interesting to watch, and Urban Meyer keeps showing us why he's just not a good coach.
Yeah. Well, he's good in college because I guess he's good at recruiting. But I mean, he's 57 and he was just hanging out with like a college-age girl.
I know.
His wife was in the same bar.
Yeah, like, I don't know what he was thinking. Like, I don't know.
So if you're Shad Khan, that's the owner of Jacksonville, what would you do with the Urban Meyer situation? Would you move on, and just what would you do with that?
Well, I like how he's approaching this situation, saying he definitely needs to earn the respect of the organization and the players back. And, I mean, as a source said, the players were just laughing about it. Like, they don't take Urban Meyer seriously. And as an NFL coach, you need to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I say if things like this continue, like a trend continues, definitely get rid of him, in my mind.
So if you were to move on, who would you move on to?
I would honestly look for another good coach from the colleges, the Big 5 colleges, just to get back in the rhythm of things, just see if there's any successful coaches on the market.
Okay. And then one more question before we hop into the other game. Is Derrick Henry a top 10 running back of all time?
I mean, Personally, I believe so. I mean, we have not seen a running back like this in such a long time, how he produces for his team week in and week out. There's no stopping this guy. in my opinion.
I agree. And yeah, in my opinion, I'd put him already in the top 10, and he's just working his way up.
Yeah.
2,000 yards. He's on pace for a ton of yards again this season, so we'll see what happens. And then, what is your next game?
My next game is the Steelers versus Broncos. Pittsburgh just outlasted Denver behind big games from Chase Claypool and Najee Harris, 27-19. Claypool caught 5 passes for 130 yards and a score, while Harris ran for 122 yards and a touchdown, despite missing the second half with cramps. Personally, I feel like the only reason the Steelers won this game is that they played very well for 45 minutes and won the battle within 3 quarters. But Denver definitely had their neck in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Not just that. So let's jump into the Pittsburgh defense. The Pittsburgh defense is supposed to be elite, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't look very special today. I know they have a lot of injuries, but still, you should be able to do well even throughout injuries. The O-line actually stepped up for Pittsburgh, which was surprising.
Yeah.
5 new starters, which is awesome. And then Big Ben had plenty of time, and he helped Najee Harris rush well as well. You said Najee Harris went for 122 yards.
Yep.
And then he also had 2 receptions for 20 yards and 1 touchdown. Going into next week, okay, let's say quarterback, Gino Smith and Ben Roethlisberger. So Pittsburgh plays the Seahawks next week. Who is the better quarterback in that game?
It's honestly hard to tell because of how Ben Roethlisberger's been playing the past 3 games before, but he definitely looked a little bit better on the more upside. I mean, with experience, you got to give it to Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay.
He's definitely got the upper hand on Geno Smith.
What do you think about his arm?
Roethlisberger's?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because you either see him just missing open receivers or just I don't have that much faith in him right now. He needs to show me a lot more than beating an interesting Broncos team.
Okay, and with Denver as well. So Denver couldn't convert on 3rd down either. They went 2 for 12 on 3rd down. I never thought Teddy Bridgewater was the guy. Once they started 3-0, you saw that the combined record of their other teams were 0-9, and it's just like this isn't sustainable, you know. And then Denver's 3-2 right now in their 2nd place in their division. Do you think they could sneak into the playoffs? And what's your opinion on their head coach Vic Fangio?
With the Broncos, I always found it weird that they started Bridgewater over Locke. I felt like they needed to give Locke a little bit more time.
You like Locke better than Bridgewater?
I personally like Locke a lot better. I feel like he has more upside, but that's just my opinion. I don't see this team making the playoffs, and for head coaching, I feel like I'm not really sure with the Broncos, and just I know they beat like 3 really bad teams, so I can't really say anything on the coaching end right now until I see more during the middle of the season.
So, again, I make this point, I think, almost every week. But the Broncos chose to pick Patrick Surtain II over Justin Fields and then went Teddy Bridgewater. So, I mean, that's just kind of their mistake, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make a mistake like that.
Exactly.
And then let's transition to your next game. What would that be?
My next game is actually was a pretty interesting one for a little bit, but it was the Cowboys and Giants. Dallas just rolled over their rivals in New York, and with New York just losing Saquon and Daniel Jones to injury. Despite starting slow, Dak continues to show us why he's going to be the comeback player of the year in my mind, with over 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, alongside with Ezekiel Elliott running over New York with 110 yards and a touchdown. So, yeah.
They look a lot more balanced this year.
Definitely.
Like I said last week, they threw the ball like 60 times per game when Dak was playing, and then Kellen Moore just had perfected this offense and made it more balanced. Obviously, Zeke is doing what Zeke did back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, so that's nice to see. Trevon Diggs, he's looking like the defensive player of the year.
Oh, Trevon Diggs is insane right now.
Yeah, and at corner. So defensive player of the year at corner just isn't likely. I would say Myles Garrett will probably win the defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
But it is just cool to see that he has 6 picks in 5 games. You saw the Giants' injuries too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Saquon, his ankle, man, that freak accident. They were literally just jogging after the play, and he accidentally stepped on some guy's ankle. His ankle was just swollen to like this side, just massive.
It looked a lot worse than what they're saying it could be. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a season-ending injury, but I hear some sources also saying that he could be back within like 6 weeks.
Saquon is known for healing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Jones got injured as well. Kenny Galladay sprained his left knee, and it just wasn't looking good. Kadarius Toney, though, okay, I said he was a bad pick coming out of the draft. It almost looked like a panic pick. So they were about to draft Devonte Smith, and then the Eagles jumped in front of them and picked Devonte Smith. So they picked Kadarius Toney way too early. He shouldn't have been picked that high. But he's been terrific. In this game, he had 10 receptions, 189 yards, and he just had a great game. One thing I did notice, though, and I think everybody else noticed, did you see the punch they threw at that player at the end of the game?
Oh, who didn't see that?
So he just threw a punch. I will never understand. Okay, I understand you're a tough guy in the NFL. There's a helmet on this guy, and you're just taking a swing. What are you going to do? How are you going to hurt that guy?
There's so many instances that we see NFL players fighting and going for the head. And I feel like it's just all adrenaline at the time. They don't even think about punching a helmet. And then when they do, they're like, ow, wait, why would you even decide to punch someone's helmet?
If you're going to fight, man, yeah, I don't know what you're doing. Okay, cool. That was a good breakdown. And then what else? Is it Cleveland and L.A.?
Cleveland and L.A. This game could go down as the game of the year.
Yeah.
Both teams combined for 89 points on 12 touchdowns with 1,025 yards and 52 first downs. This was just crazy. And also for record-breaking, Justin Herbert breaks the record for most 300-yard performances by any quarterback in their first 2 years. This was truly insane to watch.
Yeah. And Cleveland was the first team in NFL history to lose when having 40 points and no turnovers. Or 40 points, 500 yards, and no turnovers. This game was awesome to watch. But I thought at the end, Cleveland wasn't playing aggressive enough.
Yeah.
They're playing not to lose, it seemed like. They were running the ball on first and second down when you don't need to. And then just kind of flailing in third down, trying to pass the ball, trying to figure something out. And then the Chargers went 3 for 3 on fourth down, so that's something notable. Brandon Staley is the poster child of analytics right now. Everybody in the analytics world loves Brandon Staley because he's just speaking about pressures and sacks and going for it on fourth down and stuff like that. And then Justin Herbert looked incredible. 398, 4 touchdowns, 122 passer rating. He's putting up an MVP case in my mind.
Oh, I believe it. I totally agree with you. And honestly, it's not even becoming a hot take anymore at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's a hot take at all either. And then the Chargers are leading their division now. They lead Kansas City by 2 games. So that just, again, makes a statement on how good Brandon Staley is compared to Anthony Lynn. Last year, they were losing these tight games, and this year they're winning the tight games. That's coaching. That is not just players getting better. It is players getting better, but it's coaching as well. And then how do you view both these teams as Super Bowl contenders or playoff teams?
I believe easily both these teams are Super Bowl contenders, and they could meet up in the playoffs, and it could be this game again. And I just really liked, I felt like Cleveland could have won this game, with the Chargers missed extra point in the final minutes. But like you said, they played not to lose ball, and it caused them to punt and give the ball right back to L.A., and they went down and scored.
I will say it is noticeable. Cleveland's defense always is like a game changer, you know?
Yeah.
But they had Clowney go down before the game, injury-prone Jadeveon Clowney. Denzel Ward got injured during the game as well, and Greedy Williams got injured during the game. So they had an undrafted free agent actually playing corner in this game. So that's just not good on Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and Jared Cook. You know, that's not a good setup. So let's say the playoff race is happening right now. It's Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. Out of those 3, who is your MVP favorite?
My MVP favorite, I mean, with Josh Allen and his performance last night, it was very impressive. But if I had to pick one, I would say whoever I think is going to continue the trend up to the end of the season would be Justin Herbert. I feel like he's just going to be a top quarterback. No one believed him out of college. I didn't. Yeah, and I just feel like he's truly showing us what talent he has. And with this young Chargers team, I don't see him stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, out of Oregon, he looks like a dink and dunk quarterback, and then he goes to LA and he explodes.
Exactly.
And that's the end of your game, is that right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Gunner, for coming on. Again, it's at Let Gunner Cook on social media. Gunner, you did a great job breaking down the games, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's do a hard cut in 3, 2, 1. Let's hop back into the games. This is Danny Flynn. It's at dd.flynn. And Danny, let's get to your games. What is your first game?
All right, so first we're talking about the New Orleans Saints versus the Washington football team. We had the Saints beating them 33-22 to move on to a 4-2 record. Let's talk about the New Orleans offense first, because I think that's what really shone, especially the connection between Winston and Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was doing it all, I thought.
He always does, man.
He had, a touchdown running in. He had a touchdown off a pass right at the end of the game. And he was the punt returner, too. What were your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. What I noticed about the New Orleans offense is Jameis Winston just doesn't look right in it, I guess, So he went 15 for 30, 279, and 4 touchdowns with an interception. Yes, like the box score, that's a nice box score, to be honest. But if you watch it, it just doesn't look right. And I think it's because he's a gunslinger, and he just wants to sling the ball just down the field,
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Payton's a high percentage type passing offense. So I don't know. When I see the New Orleans offense, that's what I see initially.
Mm-hmm. I did think it was impressive, though. Out of the 4 passing touchdowns he had, 2 of them were over 50-yard bombs. And he caught
one was on the Hail Mary, right?
Yeah, he got the Hail Mary right at the end of the half, and then the 72-yard pass to Deontay Harris. I think that was in the 3rd quarter, I want to say. But, his arm looks incredible.
And also, the Washington defense, that's a big storyline in my opinion. Coming into the season, people were saying that their floor was like a top 10 defense, that they were just very good. But they haven't been anywhere close. Since week 1, they've allowed 20 points, 29, 43, 30, and 33. So this defense might just straight up be bad. I don't know. The NFC is just too stacked for me to see Washington football team slip into the playoffs again.
Yeah.
It's just way too stacked of a conference. And then New Orleans is 3-2 now, and they're tied for 2nd place in the NFC South. Can they make the playoffs? And in your eyes, are they like a for real team? Do they look like a contender?
I think they do. Like you said, Winston could definitely use some work in terms of tightening up the offense a little bit. He does have a tendency to just sort of want to go for it and go for big plays. But I think that they have all the pieces they need to be a contender this year.
Okay. And then your next game is Philly, Carolina?
Philly, Carolina, yep. And in this one, the Eagles came on top of the Panthers. You got the final score.
It was 21-18.
21-18. It wasn't the prettiest game. I was happy as a Philly fan to see the Eagles finally to pull something together. Hurts was pretty quiet for the first half, I thought, not really running it too much off the read option, but he did finally break loose. He had that goal line touchdown right at in the 3rd quarter, and then he had another one too later on in the game. The second half offense, or the Eagles' defense, I think was probably the thing that stood out the most.
That stood out to me as well, yeah.
Darius Slay got 2 interceptions. The D line for the Eagles, 3 sacks total. And you have Hargrave now too, leading all D tackles in the NFL with 6 on the season.
That's awesome. And then let's go into Sam Darnold. I'll ask you about some Philly stuff. I didn't know we were Philly fans, so we'll hop into that in a second.
All right.
But Sam Darnold was coming into the season. He was like the media darling. People were like, Sam Darnold can be elite outside of Adam Gase. And he started off well. They started off 3-0. But I will pound the table and say that he's not that good. I don't think he can carry a team.
And I don't think that's that hot of a take. And
Okay.
I think we saw that this past weekend in Philly. Under 200 yards, 177 was his final total. One passing touchdown, 3 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. There wasn't a whole lot good, I thought, going on about Sam Darnold in this game. A couple passes that he had, they looked all right, but I don't think that he's living up to be the media darling that we once thought he would be.
And then Jalen Hurts putting Philly on his back. As a Philly fan, how do you feel about Jalen Hurts?
I love what I'm seeing with Hurts. It reminds me a little bit of like a young Michael Vick almost, where he's able to sort of get the ball and then not immediately scramble out of pocket, but when he needs to use his legs, they're obviously a threat that he can throw in there. I think that as the games are rolling on, he's finding more and more of his passing threats. Devonte Smith, you saw him getting more and more involved this past game. I love what I'm seeing, and I think that it's only going to go up from here.
Michael Vick. That's what I would call him.
Michael Vick.
He's a lot thicker than Michael Vick. And then Chuba Hubbard also. Before we go into the next game, Chuba Hubbard rushed the ball for 24 times, 101 yards, 5 receptions for 33 yards. That's CMC type stuff, you know. That's good stuff.
It is, but I mean, you also look at the stat line that the Panthers are 3-0 with CMC and 0-2 without him now.
That's fair.
But I don't think that it's fair to pin the blame though on Hubbard. I mean, he had a great game. He was a passing threat as well as breaking. I think this was his first game breaking 100 yards, and so that's all encouraging stuff to see for Carolina.
Okay, and then one more game that you have is Buffalo and Kansas City. Is that right?
Yeah, Buffalo and Kansas City. We have Buffalo moving on to 4-1 now, and I mean, it was a matchup that we were all excited for, but I think in the end it was a little more one-sided than I think even like the game score really shows. 38-20 was the final score of that one. Josh Allen looked like Patrick Mahomes did last year. He was firing on all cylinders. I thought his patience, like within the pocket, was great. On top of that, he had a couple passes that were really deep. One over 50 yards to.
There was one to Dawson Knox and one to Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
And then Buffalo is just like you said, so good, man. They're elite all the way around, defensively and offensively. They look like the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. Buffalo is first in the NFL with 12.8 points per game allowed, and first in the NFL with 34.4 points per game scored. Also first in takeaways. So I talked earlier in the show about Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Kyler Murray. Those are my 3 MVP candidates. Out of those 3, if you were to build a team and you could pick whatever quarterback you want, which quarterback would you want out of those 3?
As good as Murray and Herbert have been looking as of late, I mean, I don't think you can throw in another answer besides Josh Allen at this point. I mean, he's been so consistently good. He's proving that. I mean, he is a franchise quarterback, and I mean, he's tall. He can throw it deep. I got to go with Josh Allen on that. And on top of that, I mean, he's got mobility too, which is not super common with a guy with his frame.
Yeah, big old guy like that.
Yeah, and you don't expect him to just like run for a first down on the first.
And hurdle that guy? What the heck? And then Kansas City. Kansas City is 2-3. I think it's not time to panic quite yet. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have Andy Reid. That's good enough to like make them playoff contenders and Super Bowl contenders. So the best playoff teams take time during the season to correct their issues, and then they peak at the right time. They peak in January and February. So that's a concern I have with Buffalo, is they might be peaking too early. But Kansas City can work and then peak at the right time. And then another point is the NFL, like the new era of the NFL, the passing, just glorified passing of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in this game is so much fun, man. It is so much fun to watch. Like there's people, I would call them old heads, who want like the old football back. They want to see those hard hits. They want to see quarterbacks get injured. To be fair, I mean they don't want to protect the quarterback, but it's so fun just to see him sling the ball all over the place. And then, what are your feelings about Buffalo? And would you call them Super Bowl favorites or playoff favorites? What would you say about Buffalo?
I mean, Buffalo's definitely a top contender right now. I mean, Super Bowl favorite. It's still pretty early to say that, but I mean, if you were to pick one team right now, I mean, they're in the hunt right now. I think that I don't know. I think Kansas City. They just looked out of rhythm, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't feel like they were really like connecting on the ways that they usually are. I mean, whether it was a drop pass or just like an overthrow, or a couple times I saw Mahomes like off balance throwing it, which I mean, usually he's got no problem doing it, but I mean, seemed to be a little bit of a problem this past time.
So if you're saying that, do you think Kansas City could correct their struggles or no?
I think they can. I mean, they certainly have the pieces. Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation, so I think an off game like this isn't necessarily cause to all of a sudden count him out.
I'd agree.
And I mean, you're talking about like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Edwards-Helaire. I mean, all these guys have what it takes, and they've shown that to be and compete at the top level. I think that chalk this up to a fluke and move on to the next week.
And then, so let's hop into one of my games that I had. It was Detroit, Minnesota. The Vikings had this. It was a close game all the way through, coming down to a field goal. Minnesota had at one point actually a 10-point lead, and then led Detroit back in the game. And Detroit fought back and fought back. They clawed at those kneecaps, like Dan Campbell said, and they let up a field goal to win the game with 39 seconds left. It was heartbreaking for just Detroit fans and Dan Campbell and Detroit players overall. With Detroit, I saw Dan Campbell showing his emotions after the game, crying and explaining that his team had so much fight. And he showed that he had a lot of passion for the game and that his team had a lot of passion for the game. His soul was just looked crushed. They're losing tight games over and over and over. And that just must be very tough.
Yeah.
What's your feelings about Dan Campbell, and could he be a successful coach anytime soon?
I mean, I think so. I mean, it's a little tough. I mean, what's Detroit's record right now?
0-5.
0-5. I mean, this is the same coach that didn't show up on the plane, right? On the.
No, that's Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer. Sorry, my mistake.
It's okay. They both have big personalities.
Yeah, but I mean, 0-5 is never a way you want to start off a season, and NFL coaching jobs are. I mean, it's a pretty rare position.
32 men. Yeah.
Highly acclaimed to have, and I mean. If what he's doing is not cutting it, then it might be time to look for a new sense of leadership.
And then to jump back into Minnesota. So Minnesota, Kirk Cousins went 25 for 34, 275, one touchdown, one reception. Then Alexander Madison was playing very well as well. With Dalvin Cook gone, he had 25 carries, 113 yards, 7 receptions, and 40 yards. So I said a few weeks ago I think Minnesota had a deceiving record because they've lost very tight games.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in tight games, I think, every game that they've had. Do you think Minnesota could make the playoffs and possibly be contenders?
I think it might be early to say if they can be contenders, but making the playoffs, I can definitely see Minnesota making the playoffs. I mean, Justin Jefferson's been playing out of his mind as of late, and while Kirk Cousins isn't like I don't know, poster child for like a franchise quarterback, I think he's good enough to lead the team and take them where they need to be.
Well, awesome, Danny. I appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure.
You did great, man, just talking about sports. It's fun just to talk about football. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I love it, and we're doing that right now. So, again, his ad is dd.flynn on all social media platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, dd_Flynn on Twitter, but Instagram, dd.flynn.
Well, awesome. Go follow him, and thank you very much for Danny for coming on the show, buddy.
Thank you.
You did a good job. Let's do a hard cut in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Weekend Wrap-Up with Trevor Junt. I'm Trevor Junt. This is Drew Ambergy. You've seen him before. He's a welcome guest on the show, and he's awesome at breaking down the games. So, Drew, let's hop in to your – oh, yeah, my bad. Follow him on social media. It's really easy to find him, just Drew Ambergy, and then he'll pop up. You'll see him.
Yeah, we got to get my followers up before we dive in here.
I agree.
But the first game I got for you is Tampa Bay hosting Miami this weekend. Now, final score is a little bit misleading on this one. Obviously, Tampa Bay won 45-17, which makes you think it was never close, but it actually was. At the end of the first quarter, Miami was up 10-7. Jacoby Brissett and Miami actually didn't look that bad. They were kind of hanging in there.
True.
And then they had it within 7. It was 24-17 going into the fourth quarter. So kind of back and forth, actually. Props to them for hanging in there. But in that fourth quarter, Brady and the Bucs really flexed that muscle and ended up scoring 21 unanswered to finish the game. Brady was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, 411 yards, 5 total touchdowns, no interceptions. And then, just hitting his big guys. I mean, Brown, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, the cream really just kind of rose to the crop at the end, and they kind of ran away with it.
And then this will be shocking, too. But Tom Brady, this is the first time in 22 years that he's ever thrown for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. That was a shocking stat to me.
Yeah, that's kind of unbelievable that he hasn't done that before,
Exactly.
especially in those MVP years with New England.
True. Oh, yeah, when he had 50 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the heck?
Thought that would have happened at some point.
And then Brady will play until he's 60 at this point, man. What the heck? He's 44 and he's doing this?
44 years old. I don't know. Maybe Alex Guerrero has some special serum in that TB12 method because he's looked as good as he's ever looked in his life.
Yeah,
and he's less mobile than he ever was. But or actually, kind of looks a little bit more mobile than he did. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, Brady looked unbelievable, and that fourth quarter was just a clinic on how to play quarterback.
And then AB looked like AB from Pittsburgh. He looked incredible. And then also on the Miami standpoint, so Miami is 31st in yards gained, 31st in points scored, 30th in points in points allowed, and 30th in yards allowed. Sorry, that was messed up. Okay, 31st in yards gained, 31st in points scored, 30th in points allowed, and 30th in yards allowed. They looked awful. Their defense is built very well, you would think, because Brian Flores.
Mm-hmm.
But they just look bad. And then Tua comes back next week. He's eligible to come back from the IR. But I don't think that matters much.
I don't think that's really going to lead to a whole bunch of wins. I don't think because Tua is coming back, they're going to start winning a bunch of games. But maybe it'll help out. I mean, Brissett obviously looked pretty bad going down the stretch. He held him in there, but it was mostly the defense holding him in check until that fourth quarter just got out of control.
Yeah.
So,
21 points is crazy.
Yeah. You normally don't put up 21 points and a half. So, yeah, doing that on back-to-back-to-back drives is pretty impressive.
And then, I don't think, like I said, and like you said, I don't think Tua coming back makes them playoff contenders or anything special.
And they got to rework, first of all, the quarterback position and just some other things on the roster. They're obviously not ready, which is surprising because they came in from last year on quite a bit of momentum. So I actually thought they were going to take another step forward and be one of the better teams in the league, but they really weren't. Obviously, Tua's not the guy, and they got some questions to answer. But my next game here is Green Bay and Cincinnati, which was actually quite a crazy back-and-forth affair. It was a pretty normal game. I mean, it was a good fight from Cincy. I actually learned a lot more about Cincinnati in this game than I did about Green Bay. Because I think Green Bay is a really good team. I still do think they're a title contender. Obviously, when you got Rodgers, you can be. But I think Cincinnati showed that they're legit. They hung around with one of the big dogs in the NFL, and Burrow, a couple of mistakes kind of hurt him in the end, but they actually did look pretty good. Obviously, the story of this one was the throughout the duration of the game, not the end of the game, was the wide receivers. So Devonte Adams with 206 yards and a touchdown. And then on the other side of the ball for Cincinnati, we had Jamar Chase going for 159 and a touchdown. So really impressive wide receiver matchup there. But yeah, as everybody knows, getting towards the end of the game, just absolute madness. So Cincinnati goes down, ties it at 22 after getting that 2-point conversion. And then, I'm sorry, I have to look at my notes for this because it was nuts. They go down with about 2 minutes left. Crosby misses a field goal, and he's already missed an extra point in the game, keep in mind. Cincinnati goes down. McPherson misses a field goal with 30 seconds left. Green Bay goes down again and misses a field goal with 3 seconds left as time expires, so they have to go to overtime. In overtime, Crosby misses another field goal. The Bengals go down and miss another field goal as well. And then, finally, after missing 5 kicks in a row, Crosby nails one and they win the game. But what a crazy day for kicks in the NFL. And this was the craziest one of them all. This was one of the worst kicking performances I've ever seen. But shout out to Crosby for making the last one. That's all people are really going to remember.
I've never seen anything like this.
Nothing.
So he missed 2 in the past 2 seasons, and then he missed 3 on Sunday.
Yeah.
That's wild. And then speaking on Jamar Chase, you spoke on it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, coming out of the draft, he had so much swagger.
Mm-hmm.
I loved him in LSU. And if you saw at the draft, he had those shades on and his dreads were just above the shades, and it looked so cool, dude. And then he did that across Devonte Adams, which is cool. And then he has a great play, it seems like, every week. I think he's the offensive rookie of the year at this point.
As of right now, I would say so. None of the quarterbacks are really making too good of a case for it. So, yeah, I'd probably go with him. And there's there hasn't been really too many breakout running back performances so far. So, yeah, I would say Jamar Chase is right leading that competition.
Here's a great stat, too, that I heard. So he's the first player since Randy Moss with 400-plus receiving yards and 5 touchdowns in their first 5 games, being younger than 21.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's setting records, and he's going to be an unbelievable wide receiver for a long time. Joe Burrow is a lucky guy.
True.
Yeah.
And we saw it before the season, too. People were worried about Jamar Chase, and then he does this.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a joke just to throw people off the scent with, not catching it because it doesn't have the stripe or anything. If it was, it's a great prank by him because everybody fell for it and was really worried going into this season. But he's got some of the best hands in the NFL right now. So obviously he wasn't an issue. What I got next, Chicago versus Vegas. So this one was obviously more of a defensive battle. Fields actually started to look pretty comfortable today. Now, obviously, Vegas isn't one of the best teams in the NFL. But, it was kind of nice to see him calm down a little bit, hit some wide receivers. He only finished with 111 yards, but it kind of was more of like an eye test for me. He kind of looked a little bit more comfortable in there. And, maybe when he gets a new coach or play caller, he can actually really flourish. But actually, the biggest thing for me was Chicago's defense, kind of looking like the Chicago defense we've come to know
I thought that as well.
in the last couple of years. They were kind of flying all over the place, hitting hard. And Vegas, they got some weapons on offense, and they held them to only 9 points, which is impressive. But Las Vegas made it interesting, 14-9 going down the stretch with about 8 minutes left. But props to Fields and Chicago. Went on a couple of drives late, got a couple field goals, a couple of breathing room, and they were able to close out a Vegas team that's now reeling. I mean, they got smacked by the Chargers. I know they made it kind of close, but they got beat up pretty bad by the Chargers. The Gruden news, and then losing this game, and then Gruden just got fired today. So, yeah, tough week for Vegas, and I think their season's probably over. I don't see them making any kind of a run from this point on.
Before we hop to Gruden, because that's some big old news right
Yeah.
there. The Raiders are who we thought they were. Our director here, Damian Alvarado, he's a Raiders fan, and he was really excited the first 3 games. And I'm like, hey, buddy, calm down a little bit. Derek Carr isn't that good. And then Derek Carr went 22 for 35, 206 yards, and an interception. He looked nothing special. John Gruden wasn't that good of a coach. And the Raiders, they can't win their division. I mean, they have the Chiefs, they have the Broncos, and then they have the Chargers. The Chargers are going to win that division, in my opinion. But they just couldn't win the division. They're not going to find a playoff spot. And yeah, it's just all downhill, it seems like, from here.
Yeah, it's a tough week to be a Raiders fan. Sorry, Damian. But, that 3-0 start might have been a little bit fluky because realistically they were only a couple of plays from being 1-4. So yeah, I just don't see it for the Raiders this year. They've got to make some changes, probably starting at the top.
And then, okay, let's go to John Gruden. So John Gruden, it just came out today. Today is Monday. That he said some homophobic stuff. He said some racist stuff, and he said some misogynistic stuff. That's obviously terrible things, and he stepped down today. Do you think the Raiders could find another head coach that would help make them successful, or what's your opinion on that? And what's your opinion on the John Gruden situation?
Well, first of all, it's an awful situation. John Gruden should really be ashamed of himself.
I agree.
And it's probably a good decision by him that he resigned because that's probably the right thing to do for the Raiders organization because you got to leave after that. I'm sure it was kind of one of those ones where it's like, well, if you weren't going to resign, they were going to fire him in a day or so. But, yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't really know who they have in-house to take over there. Probably just, promoting their defensive coordinator or something like that. But, yeah, I don't know where the Raiders go, and I'm not sure it really makes – they could probably have the best hire in the world. I don't know if it's going to make too much of a difference this season. But they're going to have to find somebody soon to take his place.
So an intermed coach, yeah.
Yep.
And then you had the San Francisco and Arizona game?
Yeah, so my last one was a little NFC West battle, San Francisco and Arizona. This one was another defensive battle, obviously, 17-10, Arizona coming out on top. Lance actually looked a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
that was kind of my takeaway from the game. Obviously, Arizona's got a little bit more talent on the roster, having a much better season, so I figured they were going to win. Kyler played all right. He does look a little banged up, though, so I am a little bit concerned for Arizona about that, because obviously they need to keep him healthy if they really want to be a Super Bowl contender. But good job by the San Francisco defense, holding them to only 17 points. At the half, this one was pretty much all Cardinals. It was 10-0, but a missed field goal, some missed opportunities by Arizona to make it a bigger lead. One of the plays of the game that will be talked about for a while is Lance not extending that ball out to score, because turns out that ended up being the difference in the game on that 4th and goal in the second quarter there. But in the second half, I do think Lance looked a lot better. I mean, he kind of looked actually like Kaepernick in the second half. He ended up finishing with 190 passing yards and 90 rushing yards, which is really impressive by a quarterback. We kind of only see that out of, Lamar and those type of quarterbacks. So I was actually impressed by him. He's still got to work on his accuracy and decision-making, but, they were kind of running more of a Kaepernick-type offense for him, so it was actually pretty cool to watch that happen.
And on Trey Lance, he just looked rough at the start of the game, I thought, because it's just jitters, your rookie jitters. And then the 90 yards he had on 16 carries, though. I just don't think that's sustainable for a quarterback. I don't think you can keep that up and stay healthy throughout your career. And then on the one where he got stuffed, like, the guy he's like, what is he, 6'5"? The guy should have just hopped over. I don't understand that. Why you go down with Isaiah Simmons? Isaiah Simmons is a huge guy. You could just jump over or extend the ball over, like you said. I didn't understand that. And then I don't understand the Shanahan struggle either. So you were talking about, like, they kind of running the Kaepernick kind of offense where it's just kind of options and quick passes, or even some deep passes. But I don't understand why Shanahan, known as, like, the offensive genius that he is, I don't know why he can't develop a good offense for Lance initially. It seems like they're going to go back to Jimmy Garoppolo. He said something about that, how Jimmy Garoppolo is still his starter. But that doesn't make sense to me. I don't see them. I don't understand why you would turn back now.
Yeah, I kind of understand it because San Francisco really is in a win-now situation. I mean, just because they have a young quarterback who's probably going to be their future doesn't mean they can kind of start wasting years with some of the amazing players they have on the rest of the roster. I think Shanahan thinks they do have a chance to be a playoff team and go deep in the playoffs, considering they did go to the Super Bowl not too long ago with Jimmy G. So I think he kind of wants to keep that hope alive because Lance just isn't ready quite yet.
Yeah.
So I think that is why he's going to go back to Jimmy Garoppolo because he doesn't give them a better chance to win now. So I do kind of understand that. But, yeah, and then I don't think he could change the offense quite yet, because he does know he wants to go back to Jimmy G, so he wasn't going to implement a whole new offense just for like a week or two. So I guess I kind of understand where Shanahan is coming from there. But, yeah, the situation with Trey Lance going forward is going to be interesting because anytime you got a controversial QB battle, that can kind of cause a little bit of issues in the locker room. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that going forward.
And then one more thing on Arizona. Arizona's 5-0 for the first time since 1974.
Yeah.
And if you saw that Hopkins catch over Josh Norman,
Yeah.
just reached right over him, man. Just too small. Josh Norman is too small. I don't know. That was
as
fun.
San Francisco made it close, too. Hopkins just put on a clinic in that last drive, and he's a game-changing player.
Yeah.
So, makes sense. First time 5-0 since 1974, back when they were the St. Louis Cardinals, I want to believe, or something like that, which is interesting because there's a baseball team called the St. Louis Cardinals. So that was kind of a fun fact there. And then the last game, you got those.
I have the Jets and the Falcons. So this game is played in England, so it was at 6:30 a.m. Yeah. Yeah,
Top of the
absolutely.
morning.
The stadium was rocking, too. The atmosphere of the stadium was awesome. Anytime any team goes to England, there's so many England fans or British fans, and it looks like a Super Bowl type of atmosphere. It's nice to see. It was the Jets and the Falcons, and it was a Super Bowl type atmosphere. So with the Jets, I have been a Zach Wilson supporter before the season. When he was in college, I was like, okay, this guy's good. He can scramble, he can make plays. But he is making it hard for me to defend him. He's leading the league with 9 interceptions. He had a QBR of 17.7 in this game, and he doesn't look like he can catch up with the speed of the entire league. It looks too fast for him.
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously see the talent with the arm. He can hit on some amazing deep passes, but gosh, sometimes he just misses linebackers and DBs. And he's going to have to fix that. I mean, hey, I can't call it that he's going to be a bust yet. I mean, Peyton Manning still has the record for most picks in his rookie year. Don't think Zach Wilson's going to be Peyton Manning, but still, that shows that you can't quite rule him out after just his first year. I do think there's potential, but yeah, it's kind of rough right now leading the league in picks.
The same thing with Troy Aikman as well. They went 1-5 in his first season. Before we go into Atlanta, do you think Zach Wilson could fix his rookie season or bounce back somehow this season?
I do think he has potential to get better. Obviously, you've seen with a lot of these rookie quarterbacks, most of them started pretty rough, and a lot of them are starting to get their footing right about now. It's a big jump to make it from college to the NFL, so I do still have hope for this guys, and I do think Zach Wilson has potential. He doesn't really have that many people to throw to, and he doesn't have that great of offensive line, and he doesn't have too much of a running game. So when you surround him with some better talent, hopefully next year, draft a wide receiver, get the better offensive line out there for him, then I think we can really start to assess him. I think it's a little bit too early, and he really hasn't been set up to succeed with the roster that the Jets have for him right now. So I think it's a little bit unfair to necessarily judge him.
I agree. And then on Atlanta, so I've been calling Atlanta possibly the worst team in the league like all season. I guess I was wrong. They're only a bottom 5 worst team. So there's a little step up there. Atlanta played well on both sides. They dominated New York, like truly. 20-27 really didn't tell the entire story either. And then this was a Kyle Pitts game, okay? Kyle Pitts is here. He has arrived. I think a few weeks ago I said to put him on a milk carton because he was missing. He had 9 catches on 10 targets for 119 yards and a touchdown. He's so smooth looking, and wouldn't you know it, when they use him right, they win games. What? Like, it's pretty obvious.
He was awesome. He looked like a guy that should have been taken top 5 in the draft.
Yeah.
So, Kyle Pitts was awesome. Yeah, you can just kind of see by the way he moves and his body positioning that he's going to be a different player, or a difference-making player. He was really awesome today. Yeah, I thought it was kind of his little breakout performance.
And then on Matt Ryan, I have to give him like some kudos because I was saying Matt Ryan was washed. I've been saying that for a while. But he went 33 for 45, 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 109.7. Apparently, he's watching the show. He sees me saying that, and he's like, "No, Trevor, no. I'm here. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to be good." Do you think Matt Ryan can play well enough to not be replaced soon? Because that's what I think he's trying to do. Is just not being replaced.
I think he's playing well enough to not necessarily be the focal point of what's wrong with their team, but I think Atlanta knows that they're going to have to make a change soon at some point. He's just an aging quarterback on a team that's not really that great, and he's actually carrying them to some wins. I don't know they want to be winning. I think for them,
I didn't even think of that.
I think for them, they honestly need to bottom out and just get a top 3 pick and get a quarterback. And Matt Ryan's playing good enough to the point where they're just going to keep drafting in that like 7 to 13 range, and they're not going to be able to get a game-changing a franchise-changing quarterback. So I think they may actually have to cut ties with him next year and try to get something back for him while they still can, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Send him to a team that's just basically just missing a quarterback. But yeah, he actually is playing pretty well.
You have any more points in that game that you'd like to talk about?
No, not really. Shout out to all the British fans out there. It was kind of cool seeing the shots of the crowd, and there's just 15 different jerseys in the crowd. So I thought that was pretty cool. You gotta love sending the boys over to England to show them what real football is.
Seriously, though, shout out to those fans because those fans are wild and they're fun.
Yeah, shout out to them.
So again, thank you very much for coming on the show, Drew. You did a great job as always. I enjoyed talking football with you. Again, it's Drew Ambergy. You can find him at Drew_6_. Is that right?
Yep, on Instagram or just Drew Ambergy on Twitter.
Awesome. And again, thank you for coming into the weekend wrap up with Trevor Junt. We've had a great time, and I'll see you next week.